You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box, where you get the inside scoop on the steps action takers and decision makers take to align their purpose to their principles and achieve their goals in business and life. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now, without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey there, it's Sarah, and I want to welcome you personally to this very special edition of the No Labels, No Limits podcast. This is a new series that we just started, and we are so excited to introduce you to Moments with Maria. This series is a shorter version of the podcast. Maria touches upon words of advice and wisdom and encouragement that are shared by the members of our community, for the members of our community, and to all of you beyond. So without further ado, let's welcome Maria.
All right. Well, hello and welcome. My name is Maria Lees. I am the content writer for Team Sarah Box, and I am delighted to share this brand new video series we're starting here, in which different members of our Sarah Box community will be joining me to share some advice, wisdom, or encouragement with the goal of injecting just a little bit more positivity into this world. Today, I am joined by Royce Morales, transformational facilitator and the founder of Perfect Life Awakening. Royce, welcome.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome.
Yes, and we're so excited to have you. You're our very first guest, actually. So thank you for being our first person to step up and say yes and to be willing to share. Royce, I would love it if you would just briefly kind of share a little bit more about yourself and the work that you do.
Well, I call myself a transformational facilitator, which is a mouthful, but that's pretty much what I do. I help people transform their lives from fear-based into, kind of more of a love-based, less triggered, less buttoned, much more deserving and more purposeful, by getting to the core of whatever it is that is running them subconsciously. That's very bottom line, what I do.
I absolutely love that. And I feel like right now, in my own life and in just conversations with people I talk to, the word you used, fear-based, just really stuck out to me. I'm like, yes, there are a lot of us that are just sitting in that fear-based place. So
yeah. Definitely.
We need people like you and the things that you offer. That's wonderful. All right. Well, let's just get to the heart of it. I know that you've got a powerful message you'd like to share with our community today about mirroring. Is that right?
Yes, I do. Yes. It's really the core of what I teach. And I know that the time that I have to talk about it needs to make it very bottom line, but it's something that I talk about all the time with my students, mirroring. And basically, the concept of mirroring is, I always compare it, I use a couple of ways to compare it. The first way that I compare it is that it's a universal law, like gravity, gravity, things fall. Yeah. And the other, and you can't break that law no matter what you try. But the other thing that I like to compare it to is a seesaw. It's kind of like you have one side of a seesaw, push down one side, the other side goes up. That's what I refer to as mirroring. You cannot suppress things in this world. Energetically, it has to come up somewhere. So if I'm pushing down my anger, that anger has to come up somewhere in my world. And the reason that it comes up is that on a higher consciousness or spiritual level, we want to learn, we want to discover that we are suppressing things. And so we attract or set up or perceive situations in our life to show us what we're suppressing. And it's up to us to look at those mirrors that are showing up in our lives and realize that they're just showing us I'm in denial about something about myself. There's kind of a rule of thumb that I always share about mirrors. If something is pushing your buttons, if you're having a reaction, a judgment, anger, whatever that negative reaction is, it's showing you some kind of a mirror. It's showing you something that you're suppressing about yourself. And it's up to you to be mindful of that. And I hate to get dramatic, but I always think that, gosh, if everybody understood this concept, there'd be no more wars. There'd be peace on earth, because we would be willing to say, oh, wow, that person that just did this thing is just showing me a mirror of myself. What do I need to see? What do I need to resolve? Because what happens from that is we feel compassion, we feel forgiveness, and we feel like, wow, they're just me embodied in this other form. So things can shift by doing that. And what's interesting to me is I've done a lot of mirroring work on myself, and I find that when I get in touch with what someone is mirroring to me, somehow the energetic thing going on between us can shift, and they don't have to be mirroring it anymore, or they can leave, or things can start changing just by me taking a look at the other side of that mirror, getting out my Windex and going, okay, wow, what are you showing me about myself? Thank you. So I hope that makes sense. That's really the Cliff Notes version, but it's so powerful and it's so transformative. And like I said, peace on earth.
And that is certainly something we want. Do you feel like I know in your work you work with a lot of different people and probably hear a lot of different experiences, but do you feel like there are, particular emotions or experiences that you see people kind of suppressing that they need to use those mirrors to look at frequently? Are there themes that come up a lot?
Anger. Yeah, that's the big one. Yeah. And I have to say that it's not easy. It's kind of like when you get up in the morning and your hair's a mess and you've got morning mouth and you're frumpy. It's hard to look in the mirror and say, oh, it's the hardest thing that I ask my students to do. And but once they get it, once they understand that if a button is pushed, it's a mirror of something. If they tattoo that on their arm somewhere, it gets a lot easier. And it's really just a matter of trusting whatever thought comes to you when somebody is pushing your buttons and you're having that anger reaction. It's like, oh, okay, what is that? It gets a lot easier, but it's not an easy task, really.
I'm sure it takes a lot of practice.
Yes.
Getting used to using that skill. If someone were listening to this conversation today and they just were hearing what you're sharing and feeling like it's really resonating and they wanted to start trying to practice mirroring in their life, how would you suggest they go about doing that?
Notice the buttons, notice the judgments, notice the negative thoughts, notice the desire to squash somebody else, and just turn it around instantly and say, okay, how am I doing that? And it's not always a direct reflection. I've had people share stories with me where one comes to mind where her boyfriend was very, very addicted to drugs. And I said to her, okay, so what do you think he's mirroring? And she gave me a look like, oh no, that there couldn't be. But what she realized is that although she wasn't addicted to drugs, she had a strong sense of addictiveness toward food, and she used to use exercise, and that was her addiction. So he was mirroring some aspect of addictiveness that wasn't necessarily to drugs. So there's always something that it's showing. And like I said, it doesn't have to be an exact reflection, but there's something that it's trying to show. And that's what our higher consciousness, our spirit, wants us to get out of denial. We chose to be here so that we can see what we're suppressing, so we can heal it, and so we can reach that place of love rather than fear. So yeah, that's the best thing to do. Just notice, notice, notice.
I love that. Pay attention. That's,
yeah.
I think our world and our culture is so distracting. So often there's so much noise that just that simple reminder to kind of pause and pay attention, to notice what's going on and how you're responding is just so powerful and so helpful.
Yes, definitely. And it will change the world.
I believe that. I believe that.
I do. I really do. One person at a time,
Yeah. So in terms of, like an individual's experience, if they start, practicing wow, that's a tongue twister. Start practicing mirroring on a regular basis, how do you see them kind of personally growing and changing over time?
Well, they'll stop feeling like a victim for sure, and they'll stop blaming everybody. And it always sounds kind of odd, but I find that when you take responsibility in that way, things, like I said, things start shifting and things feel better, and you don't have to take those negative actions toward people. So I believe that's what we are here to do on this planet, so that we can be responsible humans and we can stop trying to kill people and create wars and all of that stuff. It sounds like, ooh, I don't know if I want to look at those parts of myself. But when you do, there's a sense of relief and there's a sense of empowerment and joy that happens with it. It really does.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all that you shared with us today, Royce. I know I've learned a lot, and the wisdom that you've offered here today is truly going to bless and support so many in our community. But before you go, if you had to leave our community with one final message or quick parting words, what would they be?
Can I repeat myself? Just take a look at those
absolutely.
mirrors. There's no button that isn't a mirror. It's always a mirror of something for us to look at. And we're here to empower ourselves and get, more enlightened, more higher consciousness. So keep looking at those mirrors. I'm definitely repeating myself, but that's okay.
Some messages are worth repeating.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I'll just say a quick thank you to those who carved out a few minutes to sit with us today. Stay tuned for more encouraging and uplifting videos coming your way.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic vision coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. So please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Until next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.